we got this pretty horrifying, sad story. You know, people on social media, they say things like recession indicator, right? Recession indicator for this and that, which is self-explanatory. And they're never really recession indicators. I personally think this new wave, this trend, this movement of these young girls getting caught trying to smuggle back copious amounts of weed into the UK, I personally think that's a recession indicator. People like to throw around the term recession indicator, but I think teenage girls in their early 20s deciding to go to places like Thailand and try and smuggle back weed and shit to the UK is a real recession indicator. And you're seeing more of it every month, every week. I feel like I'm seeing a new article on some girl from the UK getting fucking arrested at the airport and she's coming back to the UK because she's got, you know, however many pounds of fucking weed in her luggage. Absolutely crazy. Let's read the article posted in the Daily Mail because somebody else got nabbed the other day. A teen drug mule, 19, was caught smuggling 420,000 pounds worth of cannabis in her luggage after she was gifted a free trip to Thailand. Let's read the article. A teenage, just because of the Daily Mail, a teenage drug mule who was caught with 420,000 pounds worth of cannabis in her luggage after being given all expenses paid trip to Thailand has been jailed. How you said it? Ariana. Wow, so really nice spelling it. Ariana Sakor, 19, was caught red-handed at Heathrow Airport on June 2nd with 14 kilograms of Class B drugs that had been vacuum sealed and stuffed in a suitcase. The teenage hospitality worker, who was thwarted while walking through the green channel of customs, initially told Border Force officials the luggage did not belong to her. How often have they heard that? However, prosecutors Abdul Kapadia said officers found the suitcases and passport details matched her name. Sakor later told police in the interview that she had been contacted by someone in her social media that had promised her £20,000 as a reward for importing the cases to Britain. The really sad thing as well about this, right? From what I've heard from what I've heard on the streets and stuff, these guys and girls will promise you that amount, but you never get that amount. You might get a couple of grand, you might get $5,000, but you never get what they promise you. It never works out that way. So they make you go on this trip that's very, 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 very high risk and low reward, or it seems like high risk, high reward. But then when you get back, you never get the money they said originally they were going to give you. They always fucking bump you, always. It continues, says Mr. Kapadia said 19-year-old was in rent arrears at a YMCA hostel she had been living in Hillingdon, West London. Damn, man. Bless her. So she was struggling, right? Got rent that you haven't paid for time, bills stacking up, and then somebody gets at you on the socials and says, hey, I've got a way out. I've got a lifeline. I've got a fucking life jacket. I've got a parachute. You take it and then suddenly now you're doing time in prison. Shit. He added that her flights and hotels to Southeast Asia had all been paid for and that she was given around £200 in spending money while there. But Sakor, who claimed she had visited Thailand because her father lived there, said she met a ginger man in a nightclub, maybe that ginger man from Backchat, in a nightclub who took the money off me and never gave it back. Jesus Christ. So she was given £200 to spend in Thailand, which is a lot of money, by the way. Thailand's usually pretty cheap. And then when she gets there, the connect there takes that from her as well. So she was never going to get the 20,000 when she landed back in the UK. She gets given 200 to spend on spending money, which is out there. She doesn't get that either. And then she ends up in prison. Like, oh yeah. Just one horror show after the other. That's a young lady, by the way. Free her. What's her name? Yeah, we say Ariana Sakor. Free her. And those are the vacuum sealed packs of weed that she tried to import back. Crazy. I know Thailand's quite strict with drugs. I think your weed is legal there, if I'm not mistaken. That's why a lot of people like going there, because they've got some pretty decent coffee shops, and obviously the climate, weather is fucking brilliant, and it's a really cheap country to go to as well. But yeah, fucking what a risk. I don't know. I would love to see how many people actually get through. I bet it's low as well, because that destination, It must be so easy to spot people coming back who are clearly smuggling. Like, pretty easy to tell. Border officials uncovered the 14 kilograms of Class B drugs in a vacuum seal stuffed inside Sakor's luggage. That's the luggage that she's got there. The court heard that Sakor had been threatened with sexual innuendos and was shown very unpleasant images of what would happen to her if she did not execute the drugs plot. Jesus Christ. Mr. Kapidia said that Sakor had traveled to Thailand and South Africa previously, but there was no evidence to suggest that she had imported. Yeah, she probably did. Come on. She didn't go to Thailand and South Africa just on the whim. If she owes a rent arrears in the YSCA hostel, she's not going to Thailand and South Africa just for the views. She definitely did. She did 2 trips already. Probably got greedy, and here we are. Sakor appeared by video link from HMP Bronzefield, wearing a black top after earlier admitting that 1 count of importing Class B drugs. Defending Joe Morris said Sakor had very little knowledge of the extent of the operation and was remorseful and was vulnerable. Miss Morris added that the drug gang had recruited vulnerable young females to do their dirty work. This is a person who was involved in drugs through the pressure when she got to Thailand. She's from a fairly deprived background. She attended a behavior and correctional school, which is known for the social care services. That's the young girl there. She was in care of her mother who struggled with her own mental health. She was evicted from a YSCA hostel because she owed rent arrears, which does not suggest that she had most stable background. Her vulnerability was exploited. I wonder how they found out. Or maybe this word gets around. I wonder how people that exploit people like this find out. Are they able to just go through people's social media and see that you're fucking struggling and DM you and say, hey, I've got a lifeline for you? Or do they just get the word around the town and reach people out? I wonder how they do this or how they identify their targets. You deliberately went out of Thailand to smuggle drugs back to the country. You did it because you expected to get £20,000, which is some very significant money for someone in your position. As you found out when you got there, things were not as enjoyable as you hoped, and I expect you were subject to unpleasant threats in terms of sexual innuendos, very unpleasant images that what might happen to you if you didn't go through with things. But you were knowing and willing participant in the scheme. You became a part of the organized crime group. You had influence on those high in the chain, but you had no influence on those high in the chain, but you did have some awareness of the scale of operation. I did consider a suspended sentence, but my concern is your knowledge of the enterprise and the fact that you may not have anywhere to live if you are released. Sakor had previously convictions for ABH. She was jailed for 15 months in order to pay £187 of victim surcharge. Asked if she understood the sentence, she said yes, with her arms crossed. So this, I think, explains why most girls are doing this. 15 months is not that long, 15 months is not that long. She'll probably get out in 8. She'll probably get out in under 10. So it makes sense why a lot of these girls are trying this. It doesn't make sense because obviously you still spend time in prison, but I guess the risk is probably worth the reward, or the reward is worth the risk. Because if you're promised 20 grand and if you get caught, you do less than a year in prison, you might even spin the block again and do it again when you get released. It's fucking crazy doing that. But after you get released, you might spin the block and say, hey, let's do it again. Because I've seen reports, as you can see via this article, in April, remember those 2 white girls that got caught? They got caught and I think they got a suspended sentence in there. I think these girls got a suspended sentence because they had good lawyers, right? They probably had money. These are just greedy. They probably just needed more money. They already had money. They needed more money. So they were able to figure it out. And if I'm not mistaken, they got a suspended sentence. I'm pretty sure it was suspended. Yeah, who's been suspended? He sentenced Bannister for 20 months in prison, suspended for 18. So these girls both got suspended sentences. So as long as they stay out of trouble, they're not going to go to prison. With 30 days of rehabilitation and 200 hours of unpaid work. And the other woman got 18 months as well with 10 days of rehabilitation. So, if you have the funds and you have the ability to kind of defend yourself, you can get off on these things. And look at even the packages. Look at even the Ziploc packages of weed. They even look identical. So most likely this is from the same cartel, the same syndicate who is fucking shipping these things over, right? They look exactly the same, those cases, those bags. So it just goes to show you that this is, for me, a real indication of recession. That these young girls who probably have, there's other options out there. You probably just get a job as well. It's not like these girls are unable to get jobs. But this need for some fast money to cover arrears, to do this, to do that, is needed, and because people feel like they can't get it any other way, they kind of, you know, are susceptible to these fucking scams and these fucking hustles. It's sad, but it's true. It's true, but it's sad.